Michael Oliver, it's all about you. Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod. As always, my name's Rory, and I'm joined by my very good friend, Andrea. Andrea, how we doing, man?
Yeah, all good. I enjoyed actually the probably one of the most hectic Premier League weekends you could imagine with the decisions and everything. But we'll unpack that right now.
Well, exactly. Just talking points galore. So much to talk about this week. So much chaotic energy. But there was two moments that kind of caught my eye this weekend. Andrea, obviously on this pod, we like to cover Italian and English football. We had a lovely crossover this weekend. Chiesa making himself at home in Liverpool. Did you see the video of them all mocking his Italian accent?
Yeah, that was funny. I think I've seen it a few times now, but that one is like, yeah, it just gets more funnier now. But good to see. Maybe he's going to get more opportunities. Let's hope.
It is incredible. It's when there's like, I think it's Andrew Roberts going, "It's a foul." The thing is just so funny. I love that. Like, yeah, people love taking the piss out of the Italians. I love taking the piss out of the Italians. And I think I really want this move to work out for him. I really want it to go well for him. I know it going well for him probably means that he lifts a Premier League title and I'm heartbroken. But you know what? I might take it if it means that he wins it. I really want this move to, and I think that just shows that he's integrating himself well. And he came across really well in that All or Nothing documentary as well. I just think he's a really nice lad. So it's good to see him fitting in. But on the other side of Liverpool, it was a little bit more chaotic maybe. And in the Brighton Everton game, Ndiaye getting booked for impersonating a seagull. I hate to be that guy, but like, game's gone. I feel like if you can't wind up the opposition fans, you're getting booked for it. I feel like this is a bit of a shame, really.
Yeah, I just think they're going to end up bringing like you can only celebrate like Shearer did back in the day with just a fist in the air like that. That's it. Yeah, like waving the air. Like, that's what's going to happen. Just you got to have that standard celebration.
No, absolutely. Either that or the old-fashioned, like, black and white handshake and walk back to the centre circle. I know that in the NFL you can get punished for over-celebrating, so I really hope the Premier League don't go that way, especially when Jamie Vardy does something much more antagonistic to the Spurs fans and gets absolutely sod all. But I really did enjoy Ndiaye, and so did the Everton fans there. I think less so the Brighton fans. Some of the scenes, there was a tweet from, is it Patrick Boylan, the Everton writer, for The Athletic, and some of the comments he said as they were coming out of the press box. He said Brighton fans fuming on the way out, telling Everton staff in the press box that they're embarrassing. How do you watch this every week, says another. Complete head loss from some. What I've seen online is Brighton fans really not taking that loss very well. Yes, I know I'm in an Arsenal shirt. The irony is obvious to me. But this weekend, there was lots to discuss, as Andrea talked about. We're going to be going to the Etihad, where Man City took advantage of Chelsea's just being Chelsea with a 3-1 win, but City were impressive. We'll be giving them some flowers. We'll be talking a lot, I think, hopefully, about Bournemouth 5, Nottingham Forest 0, a game that we all expected to be a goal fest. I expected them to be a bit more evenly balanced, but we'll be talking about Bournemouth and how far they can go. Of course, we will do a bit on Tottenham and Leicester because it would be rude not to. And we'll talk about Wolves 0, Arsenal 1. And I'll try not to bang on about referees too much. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm trying my hardest not to be. So, guys, we're going to go for a break like we always do. And when we come back, we'll be ready to talk all things Premier League. We'll see you on the other side. And we are back. Welcome back. It's time for the Premier League. Manchester City 3, Chelsea 1. And it all started with, now, just how sorry did you feel for Kusanov? I thought there was a real palpable, an Uzbek in the Premier League. First Uzbek in the Premier League is a young defender thrown in a big game. I firstly want to say he recovered really well. He recovered really, really well across the game. But that might be one of the most catastrophic starts to a Premier League career I've seen in a while. It just looked so Sunday League like, and I felt like Gary Neville was kind of half enjoying it and being like, I really feel really sorry for the lad. Like, do you, Gary? It doesn't sound like you do. But did you feel sorry for the lad? He looked like he was going to cry at one point. It was really brutal.
100%. Look, he was thrown in at literally the deep end. City haven't been on form, and Chelsea, although they've also been out of form, they're still a team that they have so many great attacking players, and they could easily cause problems. And But yeah, I felt for his sake that it's just one of those that happened so early on as well, which makes it even worse. If it happened maybe like 40 minutes into the game, he had a decent game, might be a bit better. But it's the fact that it's like one of the first things that happened.
Yeah.
It got highlighted too much for him. So yeah, I do feel for him.
I did feel bad because you know that like in Uzbekistan that's going to be like a huge moment of like everyone sat watching the telly for the Uzbek guy playing the Premier League, and then that's how it starts. And it like obviously it lets Chelsea in, but I think that's about as good as it got for Chelsea. Really, there was the chance for Foden as well, where he definitely should have done better. And I think weirdly, if it's against any other team, he probably just puts that away. I think there might have been something in his head with it being City and with it being like the chance to go 2-0 up. He definitely fluffed his lines there. But yeah, I think we should probably focus on City a little bit more. They're kind of turning a corner a little bit. They're still a little bit inconsistent. Obviously, the result in Paris was far from ideal midweek, but they showed quality here, and mainly through Josip Gvardiol, who continues to be their best attacking player as a kind of left winger. Now, I don't personally think City are going to hit the levels that they have previously been under Pep again, but it looks like they're starting to put a bit of run of form together. They're starting to believe in themselves a bit. And do you think there was enough in this performance to show that they can, turn the season around as much as they need to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key thing for City is that certain players are starting to actually pick up, especially someone like Foden, who was quite missing in this kind of period of City's kind of downfall. And he's chipped in with a few goals now. He just looks like a completely different player, kind of buying into it all over again. He's really into in the way he plays. Everything about him has looked really good for City in these last few games. Haaland obviously scoring again is important. Goals with him wins you games as well. So good with that. But I think overall, I think there seems to be some sort of unity back in terms of like they can believe they can win games now again, and it's all kind of going well in that sense. I still question mark, as you said, if it can be sustained to the level we know. But certainly to get into that top four, they're back in it now. I think they are in fourth position right now, and were teams like Chelsea around them who are dropping a lot of points. Forest now dropping some points as well, so they really could secure that kind of Champions League place. And if they do that, it won't be the worst season of all, really. When it looked like they weren't even going to get any type of European football. So, they're doing really well. And like you said, Gavardio being very impressive as well, because at the start, again, a lot of people questioning him on the left-hand side, being they need to move him back to centre-back, but he's starting to prove again why he does play there. And he could have scored 2 goals, actually, in that first half, definitely. So, yeah, he's been really impressive as well. But I think those type of key players that can really step up for Man City are starting to step up, and that's why we're seeing a difference in performance and also winning games as well. And potentially the signings coming in could make an important factor as well.
I think like a bit of freshness was needed in that squad quite clearly. Obviously, Kyle Walker gone maybe means there's a bit less antagonism in the changing room. I feel like that wasn't a happy divorce, second non-happy divorce of his life maybe. But I think like it's kind of obviously quite a positive that he's gone. What I found fascinating about this game was Man City went really long ball. Like they really were just quite happy to just ping balls over the top. And obviously with Chelsea having that fairly high line, I think it shows that like Pep is not afraid. Like, obviously, Pep has his system. He has the football he wants to play, but he's definitely not afraid to just turn it around when he needs to get a win, right? And be like, look, this is how we're going to beat this team. And when you've got a monster like Haaland as your target man, like obviously he's a lot more than a target man. But if you're going to use him as a target man, he might be the best target man in the world in terms of his physicality, his technique, everything. It showed a real versatility to their game. And a real like highlighting of like pinpointing of a weakness in Chelsea, and then being like, "This is how we're going to get at them." Like, I think it's really interesting that Guardiola's decided to do that. And like Ederson, I think is now like the 5th assist of his Man City career. There's an almost identical goal for Aguero against Watford as well a couple of years ago, where they just like absolutely pinged it over first touch, and the goalkeeper then, we'll talk about Sanchez in a minute, but it's miles off his line, and Aguero just finishes it straight away. But it's quite interesting that Guardiola's willing to just completely switch his tactics and like fully pinpoint that danger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what everyone was questioning in terms of their kind of downfall, is that why can't you change it in terms of try and fix this? Because Guardiola's always known the way he's played, it's always worked. But when it's had this kind of hit for the first time, I think even himself, he's had to learn and kind of accept that the responsibility of like, it's my tactic and it's actually not working for once. and now trying to find these kind of things really does elevate him as a manager as well. Now it starts to see that, because a lot of people question, can he do it in teams where he hasn't got everything going well, or players are missing, and he's starting to see now that in these games, the recent wins they've had, he's found these options. And again, going long ball, who would have thought Guardiola's team would do that?
Yeah.
But again, it's not out of the world to do either. At the end of the day, it's a weakness that you can clearly see, and it was effective, and it got over the line, and it made it quite convincing in the end for Man City to win. So quite impressed with Guardiola in terms of adapting to these type of situations, but also refreshing the team as well. Like you said, I think that's definitely mean key, because I think it's given City a bit of a different kind of feel now. When we look at them with the signings they've made, I feel like it does give them a different light that they didn't have. They didn't sign anyone and stuck with the same players. I think you kind of go back into that shadow. So I feel like that's also helped kind of like the morale of the team as well, getting these new players in.
No, absolutely. And I think Marmoush was a really interesting debut. Obviously, getting one of the informed players in Europe is probably a good idea. But I think he gave City a real different option. He gave them he's not as, I think, tricky and pointlessly tricky as Doku. I think he's a little bit more direct. He's a little bit more of a direct threat. And he was unlucky not to have a goal as well. I think he was offside. He just didn't quite time his run properly. But there was enough there where you think, City might have got a really good player there just to liven up that attack a bit, right?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's a different type of player that they haven't really had. And I think obviously in that final third, as much as Doku's great with skills and stuff, in that final third, he really doesn't produce as much. And Marmoush is someone that's going to come in and also will score goals as well. I know he hasn't at the moment, but he definitely seems like that type of player that can come in and score some goals as well. And there's a lot of question mark was on him, because everyone's saying that he was going to play second fiddle to Haaland, but on that left-hand side, he can literally make that his own, because I think he's got all the attributes to be that kind of left-hand kind of player as well as working alongside Haaland as well. And I think they worked quite well together in that game, showed some signs of working well together as well. So a lot of positives as well, because they've missed as well on that left-hand side someone to kind of drive it through, as well as Foden on the right-hand side. So, really impressed with him. And I think it's a great sign. It's like you said, a top European player, you can't go wrong with that. So it's going to work.
It seems like just a really well-timed transfer, and he's obviously come in to kind of replace the Julian Alvarez, fill that massive hole that I think. I always loved Julian Alvarez in the league. I thought he was an unbelievable player. I couldn't believe City. I know it was a huge offer from Atletico, but I couldn't believe City let him go, really. And they obviously thought, we can get through one season without him while we try and find the replacement, but they've obviously not been able to. And he's been brought in for that mold. So it'll be interesting to see if he can fill those boots. Because I think people forget how many key little goals Julian Alvarez got and how many winning goals he got. I think people really forget that those games against Palace where you win 2-1, or against Forest where you win 3-1, he gets that goal that clinches the game, or he gets that one that makes it comfortable. And I think they've really just missed that. So I'll be interested to see. It's exciting. He's an exciting player. I really enjoyed watching him, so I'll be keen to see how that goes for him. Man City now 4 wins in the last 5 in the Premier League. As you said, back up into 4th place. They will get Champions League this year. I think they've managed to kind of put out the fires just in time. If they'd have left it a little bit longer, they might have been struggling. But let's talk about Chelsea, I suppose. They're spending God knows what money, selling everyone, buying everyone, being linked with Garnacho, because why not get another attacker? But for some reason, they refuse to buy a functional goalkeeper. They've done this mad thing where they've bought 8 goalkeepers and don't trust any of them. So they've got Kepa out on loan currently. They've got Petrovic, is it, who played? And Chelsea fans, I can't remember all your goalkeepers' names, but I think it's Petrovic, who was in for a bit, but then was out for a bit. Then it's Robert Sanchez, who wasn't good enough for Brighton. And then there's 5 others who I'm not sure who they are. Why don't they just go out and buy a goalkeeper? It feels like now Maresca is kind of dying on this hill. It's kind of a point of principle. He's come out again, I think, and backed Sanchez and been he's the goalkeeper we want. He's the goalkeeper. He can't keep. He drops a mistake every single game. It feels like at the minute. It's just, I don't know what he was doing for that goal.
It was terrible goalkeeping, honestly, and he's not the first time he's done these type of mistakes as well. And I don't get why he gets persisted with, especially with all the options they have as well. Even Jorgensen's come in, who's looked okay.
That's
even he could come in and maybe start a few as well. I just don't know whether it's this whole thing of that he can play out from the back, but even in that, he's made mistakes playing that from the back so many times. So I don't know what else he has to do wrong to get dropped. It's quite frustrating because I feel like at the end of the day, if you're going to challenge for certain positions, you need a top goalkeeper. We've seen that teams gone by, Alisson, Edison, they've got top goalkeepers, and I think Sanchez, you're not going to go anywhere with him. It's another mistake. It's a liability, and goalkeepers are so vital that like defenses can be like strong because of the goalkeeper being commanding. You see it with top goalkeepers; they can really make defenses step up. But I feel like he must cause Chelsea's defenders to feel vulnerable if they break their line that they could score. So it's it's not a good look. And again, I don't understand the backing in like you said that he's backing him in the press as well. There's no real grounds to say why he should be backed at this point. Like I said, all the attributes that he should be good at, he's not been good at. So when does it change?
It's a bit of a mad one. Like, if they're going to go out and spend what is probably going to be 60, 70 million on Garnacho, just go and get a goalkeeper. Just go and get a goalkeeper, one that's world class, one that's like one of those, go out and get Maignan from Milan. Go and get, I don't know, one of the many class goalkeepers in Serie A that's going to be like young and exciting and going to be, if that's what you want, go for Caprile, buy him, have a young goalkeeper who's very, very good and only going to get better. Like, I don't see why you would stick with Sanchez now. And when you've got this defence that seems every week, I'm not really sure who's going to start in defence for Chelsea. I know they've had a lot of injuries. Chalobah's come straight back in because they've had to drag him back from Palace. And then you've got a goalkeeper that isn't too certain. It just means that games like this, when you've got players like Foden, Haaland and Marmoush, they're going to tear you to pieces. And I think Chelsea, it was just their run of form now is really quite concerning. I think Maresca hasn't really been able to turn. Like, obviously, they got a really good start to the season. All their fans spent a very long time saying, we're not in a title race. No, you're not in a title race. But is it alarming that he's not really been able to end this run of form? Because it didn't seem like there was much flexibility in the approach or even the players coming off the bench. Like, I don't know if, like, Nkunku clearly isn't happy there and they need to get rid of him. Like, Pedro Neto's got one goal all season, barely played. Like, the players coming off the bench aren't particularly exciting either. And this is supposed to be the best of a very big squad.
Yeah, and absolutely, and they're also, it's like you said, they found ways to be short, like defense. They've had so many options, and now they've got to bring Chalobah back. It's an all mess in terms of the way it's kind of done, and a lot of players that they have aren't really stepping up as well. And I just thought as well, I think Maresca doesn't help either with the substitutions. I felt like he left it too late in that Man City game to change it. Like in the 73rd minute, I think was the double change. So it's like it's not really a Maresca, like the kind of like substitution, the key moments in games kind of stepping up. He's almost like accepting that the game was done. And I feel like it's felt like that quite a few times now watching Chelsea, and it just seems like it's going to be a big issue. And again, these type of players that are in sub, next day they could be out the squad completely. It's too many, and Maresca's tried his best to try and cut it out. And I think, to give him credit, he's done quite well.
He's done a lot better than I thought he would, honestly. Yeah.
But it's just. I think he's going to need. They're going to need to try and keep the question is if they get rid of him, which I think will be a big mistake, even though he's on this bad run. I just think he needs to get to the end of the season and finally get that final trim of squad and get obviously a few more players he wants, and maybe there's a difference. But in terms right now, I just think it's all over the place. Like, they wanted to get rid of Chalobah, now he's back in the team. Like, it's nonsense at this point in terms of the way it's run, and I can't imagine how it impacts the players. Coming in, coming out. So it's a whole mess. And yes, they've had injuries, but it's too many excuses now. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is they've spent all this money. They should be able to challenge and win games and do well. And right now, I don't know when the next win's coming. It looks that bad at the moment.
No, absolutely. And I think they're the only club that them spending so much money is used as for a reason for them being so bad. It's like, oh no, but they've spent a lot of money and they bought a lot of players, and that means there's no way it can work. Like, it's just such an extreme. But I think, I'm very impressed with the job he's done, because I think he's done incredibly well to manage it this far and get this much functionality out of it. But it just feels like they're running out of steam a little bit. Obviously, City away isn't the game that you think, you should go and win. But I just think it was a little bit toothless and a little bit uninspiring in the performance. And when you're bringing on a player like Nkunku, who just clearly doesn't want to fucking be there, like, it's just, those are the squad building issues that we were kind of talking about, right? But also, of course, there was a Man City game, so of course we had Pep Guardiola giving a pep talk to a player after the match. This time it was Cole Palmer. Some people fail to be able to understand that people who know each other talk to each other. Gary Neville making far too big a deal out of this. I think it was just people catching up, but Pep does love a public chat on a pitch after a game. But let's leave that game there. Manchester City in great form, unfortunately, and Chelsea not. I quite enjoyed that. And let's go to the big headline of the weekend. We left it second because we did a big talk about these last week, and it's probably going to be the same talk. But this time we've got Andrea, not Adam, so maybe it'll be a bit different. But Tottenham 1, Leicester City 2. Let's first give Leicester City their flowers. They hadn't won in 12 games, I think it was. A horrendous run, not scored in 7. So, of course, Dr. Tottenham comes and hands them a lovely 3 points to get them over their little bump. But overall, a pretty good performance from Leicester. I thought Ayew was fantastic. I love how Ayew, one game a year, decides he's going to be unplayable, and this was the game that he decided was going to be unbelievable. And I really like Stolarczyk in goal. Obviously not their first choice keeper, young Polish keeper, but he's come in and he was very, very key in Leicester getting this result, really.
Yeah, definitely. And again, these type of players was really key in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And again, they just went with the game knowing that it's Tottenham. Like they've looked horrendous. No one should fear them, and that's what happened. And I think they showed it. They've kind of capitulated in a lot of games this season, but in this game, they really took it to Tottenham. Even though yes, they could have conceded quite a few. I was just quite impressed the way they approached it. They really believed they could get a result. And Vardy, I think for me again, rolling back the years, like this guy's timeless at this point. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. But yeah, I like you said, I think those two players in particular really stood out for me as well. And they deserved their win in the end, I think. Despite the chances they conceded, I still think they deserve to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I thought it was a really just committed performance, and like the defending towards the end was like full blooded, and even Wout Faes looked fairly competent, which is impressive. But I think it was a really good finish from Canusi, or from El Canous, sorry. A really well taken goal. Obviously, the Tottenham play for the Vardy goal is absolutely criminal, and we're going to get onto that. But Vardy still being able to jump onto these mistakes, make the most out of them, wind up an entire fan base in one foul swoop. Like, I think this is huge for Ruud van Nistelrooy as well. Like the natives were getting very, very restless and chanting at him, "You don't know what you're doing." And this is a bit of, even if it was, you could say 50 Tottenham's incompetence and 50% Leicester's competence, it's still a big statement win for them to be like, okay, right, look, we can still do this. There's talent in this team. And like that relegation battle, I think this kind of, it's big down there because not a lot of the teams are picking up points, obviously. And I think this is it kind of drags Tottenham into it, which we're going to get onto as well. But I think it's just a huge, huge win for Leicester, and a big moment for them. But let's talk about Tottenham, I suppose. It's kind of come out this morning that Daniel Levy is going to stick with Ange Postecoglou. He's giving him his backing. Now, this could be the dreaded backing of the board, or it could actually be a full backing. But I think, interestingly, that Aya, and rightly so, that Aya hasn't really been fully at Ange. The chants in the stadium and the banner that everybody's seen was very much pointed towards ENIC and Daniel Levy. He's the highest paid executive in the Premier League by some distance. So he earns nearly 7 million a year, which he pays himself, right? Which is very generous of himself. And a very good point that friend of the pod, Ben Bowman, made on his TikTok. He's very, very good if you want to hear all things Spurs, talking about their wage bill compared to their outgoings. And the whole thing is just very much a money-saving exercise. There was a really interesting thread on Twitter as well, of a guy who went through all the managers under ENIC, so over the 26 years, and every single one of them basically had the same thing of, I enjoyed my time at Tottenham, but dealing with Daniel Levy was a nightmare. I never got the players I wanted. It was always the second choice. It was always inefficient squad building. I wanted a striker. He got me a left back. It was buying players so that we could sell them on in the future rather than capitalising on good teams that we had. Talking about when they sold Keane and Berbatov in the same summer, when they sold Bale, when they just not the club showing that ambition when they've had the moment to. This is just, is this a watershed moment? Is anything going to change? I feel like Daniel Levy's kind of rode out storms like this before, or is this one worse?
I don't think it will change. I mean, it's got really bad. I think this is probably one of the worst we've seen in a while, actually, in terms of the situation. 13 defeats in the league at this point is absolutely horrendous. It's not... You're laughing. It is. But yeah, no, I just think that's the big issue I've had all these years with Tottenham, is that they've always gone for not even the second option, it's always the third or fourth.
Mm-hmm.
I've always thought it's never been the second either. It's always the third or fourth. It's the cheaper option. It's the one that can do the job. The only good thing they ever do, they buy really good young players and develop them. That's the one thing I could give them credit for. Like Archie Gray's a great signing.
Yeah.
Bergvall looks good. They always buy well in terms of young players, but it's those world-class players that really build your team, elevate you to that next level that your young players can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
They never do it. They never go out and just go. That Bale was the prime example. You sell him for that much, and then in the end they just brought 20 players for 10 mil, pretty much. And it's you're never gonna build. And unfortunately, the fans are right. It does come back to the chairman. Unfortunately, Conte said it in his famous rant about 20 years they've won nothing, and but it's a mentality thing. Unfortunately, that just starts from there, and it fills down to the players with ease. I think even heard that story when they got to Champions League final. They got a souvenir saying they're Champions League finalists.
Yeah, before the final.
You're there to win it. Yeah, you're there to win it. What are you on about? Finalist. Honestly, that's the concern. So I do feel for Ange in that sense that it's a bigger issue. We've had top managers there. You've had Mourinho. You've had Conte. You've had winners, people that win cups, and still. And you can even look at the tactical things Levy's done. The sacking of Jose Mourinho was the most sussest thing I've ever seen in football. Just to not get him renewed for next season in case he won something. A trophy which Tottenham haven't won in ages, by the way. And you're going to give up on that chance just to save a bit of money on a manager you don't want. It's not doing good by Tottenham. It's doing good is a business rather than I care about this team and I want this team to win and challenge. They've got one of the best facilities in the country. They've got everything going their way in terms of that type of stuff. The infrastructure is unreal at Tottenham, and it's literally like having the bestest house in the world, and it's inside is there's nothing.
Yeah, no furniture.
It's empty.
No
furniture, nothing.
Yeah.
What are we doing? I feel for Tottenham fans in that sense as well. But yeah, it definitely for me. I presume you feel similar to that, but I think it stems from Levy.
Yeah, no, I think it's 1,000% him, and I think I've talked about their transfer policy so many times of just they go for the player that the other top teams were looking at but chose not to, and they just lacking that ambition, that one push. What they really should have done when they got to that Champions League final, they should have backed Poch to the hilt and just been this is it now. We are we've got the furthest that we've been in decades for this club. We need to really make the most of this, go out and spend money and really build the squad that this guy wants, not chase him out within 4 months. And I just think they've not backed any of their managers properly. It is all about the balance sheet. And as much as I'm an Arsenal fan, I do feel bad for the fans, because genuine fans don't deserve to be taken for a ride. They don't deserve to have the piss taken out of them. And they've got the most expensive season ticket in the country as well, by the way. It's an amazing stadium, but they are paying the most in the country to watch that. And you should rightfully be pulling the seats out of the stadium and rioting, because it's been decades of having the piss taken out of them. And looking at it objectively, it's disgusting. And I think you must just be so frustrated as a fan at these missed opportunities and this, and yes, the manager doesn't help himself, and the players were atrocious, and there's all these issues. But you think sacking Ange isn't going to do anything. It's going to be the same cycle again when they bring in, and Iraola would have rocks in his head to accept the job, but I imagine that's who they would go for. So let's say they get Iraola, he has a fantastic start after 6 months. By Christmas, they crash. Then all of a sudden, they scrape top 4, maybe Europa League. Okay, we'll build again. that season isn't as good. Okay, this guy's crap as well. Now what do we do? Like, so I think they kind of have to stick with Ange at this point. They're not going to get relegated, although their fixtures are pretty rough, and they do have to like pick up points at some point. I think they're lucky that there's 3 teams that are worse than them this year, but I think there's a solid possibility that relegation could be a possibility with the last 3-4 games of the season. Like, I don't think they're going to fly out of this easily. It's going to take a while to turn around, but they've just got to stick with Ange, right, and just let him get this job done. Because unless you're going to bring in Sam Allardyce, like who's gonna get the bounce? Really, I think whenever fans ask for, okay, sack the manager, okay, then who? Like, there's no one else really. So, do you agree they have to let Poch just see this one out? Ange, sorry.
They should have let Poch see it out as well. No, I agree. I think they need to, like, realistically, who are they going to get Ryan Mason in? It's not going to make any difference. I think, again, he has the right ideas. He wants to win. Like, his mentality is that he wants to win, but he just hasn't got the resources and stuff to back it. Again, this is like probably the biggest crisis period of Tottenham in the last 20 years, probably the worst it's been.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we might see a change. Maybe he gets back. Maybe they switch him out and then they get someone in else and they back him. I just think they need to actually, for once, back the person that they've got. You know, Conte was the winner. If they backed him, maybe they could have won a trophy. They could even challenge for the leagues. Really, he's that type of manager. But you don't do it. You know, Poch got, like you said, Poch got to the Champions League final. Didn't back him. I think they didn't sign anyone that window, right?
No,
Was it that window?
Yeah, they didn't sign anyone.
Unbelievable. Doesn't matter how good your team is, right? You always need to sign 1 or 2 players to improve that team. It doesn't matter how good it is, because it does help, you know, freshen the team, but also push them further for the season ahead. You can't do that. But again, it's always these things, and again, it's always emphasis on the youngsters. Great, fantastic, got some young players, but you need world-class players. And when you think about the world-class players they've signed, really in the last years, who could you really think of? Like Son, maybe? Apart from that, there's not like...
I think the only one that comes to mind, and I feel like he needs to be rescued from this squad at this point, is Kulusevski. I think he's been one of the best. He's been one of the best players in the Premier League this year in a team that's currently 15th. Like, he's been unbelievable this year, and I just think someone come and get him out of that place, because he needs to be in the top 4. He needs to be challenging at the top of the league and challenging for titles. In some world, Arsenal have the balls to offer money for him just to take the piss. But I think like another team needs to come in and really make an offer for him, because he's the only player that I look at and go, there is real quality there, and there is someone that can win you a game he can just decide to win you a game, but he can't do it on his own. And I think Son, unfortunately, it looks like age has caught up to him. He's not quite the player he was. He had a few opportunities in the first half, and just, you think there's been a few games now where he has, like, you know, he's bursting through on goal, this one-on-one. You think, oh, here you go. Son puts this away, and he's just not putting them away at the moment. I don't know if he's just tired, he's not got the legs, whatever it is, he's just not really getting it done. But there was a really interesting moment, just going back to Ange a little bit, where after the game, he was coming off the pitch, and one of the Spurs fans kind of shouted at him, "We're going down under you." And he came out and kind of was like, "What did you fucking say, mate?" And started mouthing off, and then one of his coaches dragged him back in. There's an interesting dynamic there between the fans and him, though. It has been very antagonistic for quite a while. Like, do you see this situation continuing? Because I think there's just a lot of resentment between those two parties.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just going to continue, because at the end of the day, despite what we've been talking about is coming from the board, Ange has contributed to this form as well.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't helped it with the selections he's done, with the the style they play, the consistency of just keep attacking non-stop. Like, it's not like realistic in every game to be like that. Yes, they've had some impressive wins, like the Villa game, the City away. They've had some great wins where they've played teams off the park, but you can't do that every week, and he's never adapted to that. And again, even against that the Leicester game, like he brings on Lagshi with like 1 minute to go. He's the only striker on the bench, pretty much. Like, why is he not on earlier? Like, I don't know, some of the decisions as well. But again, it all comes down to his kind of style and not adapting. We just talked about Guardiola starting to adapt. You know, when the poor run. Tottenham have been poor the whole season. He needs to adapt at some point. Like City were poor for like a short period, like relatively short period in the end. And whereas Ange is not adapting, and I think every right that the fans are against him as well, because I think although he wants this winning mentality culture, which is a great thing because Spurs clearly lack it. It's not realistic to be this attacking football, and I think it's just going to get worse because he's not going to change it. If he hasn't changed it before, I just don't see him. I don't know about what you think, but I don't think he will change it.
No, he's absolutely not going to change it. But I think it's his personality, maybe, that because he's getting kind of gruffer and gruffer and more kind of antagonistic and more antagonistic as the pressure piles on. Like, I can't even begin to imagine the pressure of being a Premier League manager and how fucking grating that must be. But like, I just feel like he's a character that isn't going to back down and it's just going to escalate and escalate and escalate. I've kind of said this theory before, but I think ever since that Man City game at the end of the season last season, he looked at those supporters and thought, I don't know if I'm really... I think that was a turning point in his relationship with the club and their relationship with him. Like, he doesn't get it. He's not proper Spurs. And he was like, you're not proper supporters. You want us to lose. Like, so I think there was a real turning point there. And maybe this is just feeding into that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that develops across the season when there's more pressure than there's ever been on the Tottenham manager since, I don't know, the early 90s when they used to be down here. Like, so it's kind of, it's a really interesting psychodrama that's going on there at the moment. But yeah, it's kind of leave that there, I suppose. We talked about Spurs so much last week, and I feel like we're going to be talking about them a lot more. Last point, the fact they haven't signed anyone this transfer window is scandalous with all the injuries that they have. Like, they've signed one goalkeeper because they absolutely had to, but Jesus Christ, the injuries they have piling up and to not bring in a single player is genuinely criminal. Like, I'm surprised Ange hasn't just walked out, honestly, just been like, fuck you, if you're not going to back me like this, I'm out. But let's leave that one there. Huge win for Leicester. Bad day for Spurs. Let's go to the next game. We're going to talk about Bournemouth 5, Nottingham Forest 0. Now, Andrea, I don't know about you. I expected this to be a kind of 3-2. I expected 5 goals, but not so much on one side. But what a performance from Bournemouth. They are absolutely unstoppable at the moment.
Yeah, unbelievable. And again, Semenyo on that side, what a player, honestly. He's got to get picked up, I think, at some point. He's that good. He's unreal. But again, it's just, they had quite a few players missing, actually, in their game as well. Quite a few injuries, Bournemouth themselves. And against a toughened Forest side who are, in fourth, they just played them off the park like they were a relegation team. Like, they made Forest look incredibly bad. When Forest have gone to Liverpool and drawn, they've gone to Chelsea, they've gone so many good wins and points and stuff, and they just, absolutely outplayed them. It was unbelievable. But again, it's just the style of play, Iraola. You could see at the start when he started the ball what he wanted to implement, and it wasn't quite clicking. But now the players they've got, the certain players that he's brought in, and kind of financial backing they've got now, they've got quite a good financial backing as well. Yeah. There's a lot of potential here for European places and developing into a really big Premier League side in the future. So I think new stadiums on the conversation as well. But I'm just impressed again. It's just the style of play, but also this is a difference again between like an Ange one or Bournemouth. Is Bournemouth will actually adapt in the game, and they've got players that can switch it up on the sub bench as well. But they've got players that are really contributing in the final third. Semenyo again, another goal. Like they've got goals from every position, which is really crucial.
They've done this without their big marquee striker who was meant to replace Solanke as well. Evan Nielsen has been injured for a very long time. Yeah. And they've the way he has just solved that issue, and it's not even affected their form. If anything, their form has got slightly better, and you're like, okay, that is an incredible manager. Like, your big signing for the summer has gone down and you've not panicked. You've just gone, okay, we just drop Kluivert into the middle, we do this here, we do that there, and the whole thing just continues to work. And I think like Ouattara, a hat-trick, unbelievable, like just great performance from him. But what I really like about Bournemouth as well is not all of their players are being linked with moves. It feels like a lot of their players might be quite happy there. They're not, like, usually when a team does like this, you don't know if it's the clubs or if it's the agents or if it's just paper talk, but you kind of like, you're expecting Semenyo to get linked with teams, you're expecting Kluivert to get linked with teams. There's nothing. And I think that means that there's like a really happy camp there. There's just like, we're all happy to see where this goes. And if we get into Europe next year, we're coming for Europe as well. Like, I think all the players can see what Iraola is trying to do there, and they can see what he is doing there. I think it's just a very happy place at the moment. And one point, again, like the attack gets all the plaudits here, but Zabarnyi and Huijsen, Zabarnyi, when he came into the league, I was like, thank you, Football Manager. But I was like, this guy's class. It's amazing that they've bought him, right? And then Huijsen, we know from Serie A, was fantastic for Frosinone, was great for Roma. Still amazed that Juve let him go. This is like one of the most exciting young centre-back partnerships in the Premier League. I don't know if they get the credit they deserve, but against a Forest team that have been fairly free scoring, I think they need a little bit of, well, they need a few flowers for this performance of being like just completely keeping it shut down.
Absolutely, and I think just as good as the attack. To be honest, I've got to say, Kirkes as well. You could throw in there as well.
Yeah.
He's been unreal as well. In fact, I think he's been one of the best. I think the best left back in the league. I'll actually go to that level in terms of performance wise.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's a young team, but also with serious high potential. These players, and they've just been top quality, and they've dug in well when they've needed to. But they've also helped, build attacks from deep because they're winning the ball quite quickly, retaining possession. But yeah, they're just outstanding. And again, the ages of these players, 22, 23, 21, unbelievable. They've got so many years ahead of them. If they consistently play like that, yeah, they could really build a really strong team.
Yeah, I just realised Huijsen is 19. Mental. Absolutely mental. Zabarnyi is the mature one at 22 years old. Like, fair play. Just an incredibly exciting team. And I was hoping that this wouldn't be on at the same time as the Arsenal game. When I saw it was on at the same time as the Arsenal game, I was like, oh crap, I definitely would have watched this game. Like, I really wanted to sit and watch Bournemouth Forest, like two of the most exciting teams this year. For Forest, just one of those days. I think you just need to forget it, move on, and be like, okay, let's just forget that. But for Bournemouth, a real absolute statement win of like, and they've got Liverpool at home next, which is, well, personally, I'm fully a Bournemouth fan for the next week. But yeah, that could be a really, really great game as well, that one. I'm excited about that one. So next, guys, I've left it towards the end of the show because it means I can't go on for too long because we only have about 10 minutes. Wolves 0, Arsenal 1. Positives, we got the job done. I'm in love with Riccardo Calafiori. I don't know if you saw, Andrea, I can't, every time I watch him, I'm just like, frig me, can you just not be fit a little bit more? The guy is such a great player.
Honestly, he is probably one of the best playing defenders out there. Like you could almost play in midfield. He's that good on the ball.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, it's not the first time he scored a crucial goal as well for Arsenal. There's quite a few he's done actually. City as well. Yeah. He's done. He's stepped up again, coming on. Yeah, he's done really well again.
I thought like our whole approach changed when he came on. Like, obviously, we went down to 10 men in somewhat controversial circumstances, which we'll get onto. But I really liked that because in the past, people have criticised, and I've criticised Arteta for the second we go down to 10 men, we just go, right, fucking terrorism ball, 10 men behind the ball, just fucking break us down. This time we didn't, and we were like, absolutely ran at them second half, and we're like, we're just going to overpower you. 10 of our players are better than 11 of yours. And I was really impressed with that approach. And Calafiori really gave us that ability to step into midfield and bomb on even more further forward and really put them under pressure. I saw a great tweet this week that was like, Calafiori is one of those players that if he played for a random national team, he'd be there like number 10, but he'd be a defender somewhere else. Like, he could just do everything incredibly well. But so I think he really helped the performance. I think in general, Arsenal played really well. Like, Havertz is absolutely exhausted. He's exhausted. He's missing these chances because he's not rested for 6 months. I just think when that final whistle went, he damn near passed out. Like, he was so tired. The guy needs help. But I think our performance overall was fantastic. Thankfully, the decision didn't cost us the result because I would have been fuming if it did. On a Wolves point of view, I was really impressed with Agbadou. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, it was really good.
He completely shut us down. Every single time Martinelli got near him, apart from the one time he managed to get the ball in, Agbadou completely shut him down, unflustered, played the ball out from the back. It was really impressed with him. But I think Wolves just didn't really have that attacking outlet. I think once Strand Larsen went off, that was a big moment for them. He's a big outlet. But Wolves fans, obviously, understandably frustrated they couldn't take advantage of that man advantage for as long as they had it. But let's talk about the decision. I don't really want to. The decision, I don't know, Andrea, correct me if you disagree, but I just think we don't need to talk about it beyond it's not a red, it was a booking.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just,
that's it.
Yeah, that's all it is, but it's just frustrating that he gave it, but then on top of that, VAR confirmed it. That's what makes it even worse. And again, this whole question marks over VAR, I think now it's just got even more enhanced because that got passed as a red card. It is it's the jokest red card I've ever seen in my life. Like, it is ridiculous. Like,
mate, I
don't understand. I don't understand. Like, I don't know how he saw that and was like red. Like,
and so quickly as well.
Exactly,
so quickly.
What I'm saying.
Yeah.
What did he see that made him think, yeah, straight red? You know, sometimes referees, they'll like take 10 seconds, walk away, come back. He's just like, yeah, red. I don't know. I don't know.
I cannot tell you how angry I was. I was like shaking.
I don't blame you.
I was shaking with anger. I was really close to turning the game off and just being like, what's the point in any of this? What's the point in anything we've just done for the past 5 years that Arteta's been building shit? If these people are just going to throw grenades into all that, like, I cannot tell you how angry I was. But my wider issue, there isn't a conspiracy. Refs aren't sending Arsenal players off because we're Arsenal. People don't fucking hate us beyond what we deserve to be hated for being moany bastards online. But I think there is a wider issue about refereeing in the Premier League. This weekend, Enciso got a yellow for what definitely should have been a red when he flew into Endo, I think it was. Joelinton, who is the new Rodri in terms of unable to be booked, again had another potential leg breaker where he didn't even get a yellow. The João Gomez free kick, the João Gomez foul in this game was much worse than Lewis Skelly, but was only a second yellow. And for the people online who are going, you're complaining that he got sent off in the wrong way, Miles Lewis Skelly now misses 3 games. João Gomez misses 1, and one of those games was due to be against Ipswich if it had been a 3-match ban, who they're directly up against in a relegation battle. If I'm an Ipswich fan and I'm Kieran McKenna, I'm thinking, why the fuck is that not a straight red, and why do they get to play him? Like, and it's this inconsistency that I just find so frustrating. João Gomez, again, should have been sent off before because he kicked the ball away twice. He wasn't sent off the second time. So Michael Oliver, and this is the one I have the issue with. It's Michael Oliver I have an issue with because I think he does have a knack of making the game all about himself. He has given a string of really dodgy decisions against Arsenal, whether it's giving Martinelli 2 yellow cards at Molineux within the same 10 seconds and sending him off, whether it's not sending Kovacic off in the game at the Emirates last season, sending Trossard off at City this season. Most of those decisions, you could argue that there was a bit of logic, like, okay, kicking the ball away to the letter of the law is a second yellow, it's a sending off, but we've not seen it applied anywhere else, right? I don't want to ruin the game with Kovacic. He's perfectly happy to ruin the game at the Etihad when it works in City's favour. Like, I just think there's something about him that needs to be looked at, and I think it's whether it's bias, conscious or unconscious. I tend to think it's unconscious bias. There is something that's causing him to make decisions that I think are suspicious. The fact that he also gets paid to referee in the UAE, that can't happen, surely. Like, I think there's just... If you are a conspiracy theorist, there's enough evidence there to encourage you to be a conspiracy theorist. I think it's incompetence, but there's a lot of, like, things to look at there, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think there is a conspiracy there. I did see that whole like thing of like him actually helping City more than Arsenal in all these situations, because technically this all helps City in terms of the title challenges, etc. So, but yeah, no, I think there is. Like I said, and it's also again contradictory because I think it was one of the head. I think it was Howard Webb that said that Oliver likes to like not kill the game off. He wants to make sure the game, that everyone has 11 men on the pitch. But then you see that red card with Skelly out of nowhere, which wasn't a red card. Yeah. He's straight to give it. So it's like, what is it? Yeah. And again, it's like you said, it's too many inconsistencies which just get highlighted. And again, I think it's just it's a big problem in general in that sense. But also, again, what makes it worse is that it enhances the issues that we have with VAR.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that red card for me, like I'm for VAR in terms of what it can bring in terms of decisions. I like that.
Yeah.
But when it's not saving those situations, you start to question what's the point of it, because you're gonna back the referee 9 times out of 10, even when it's wrong.
Yeah.
And then you've got the official referees back home being like, "Oh yeah, no, it was a red," or they'll find some way to say how it was a red. When everyone knows it wasn't. Like,
Yeah.
couldn't see anyone that said it was.
Well, it's already been on, like, and Sky Sports have been on the full PR, like, and Pugmall have been on the full PR drive today. That obviously any abuse sent to Michael Oliver, there's idiots everywhere. It's fucking horrendous. Like, if you find yourself sending death threats to anyone, you need to be fucking locked up or reassess your life, right? I'm not excusing that, but the PR machine that went into overdrive on a Sunday afternoon during all the games, when everybody's too busy to actually comment on it, Sky putting up a load of tweets and then deleting them really quickly, whether it's the videos and just, put it up, oh no, wait, delete that, put it up, delete that. Jamie Redknapp's embarrassing fucking speech after the game of like, if I came back to play any game, I'd want Michael Oliver to referee. What are you talking about? You'd want, what are we doing here? Like, you can count on one hand the mistakes he's made. That's just not true for any referee because people make mistakes. But this circling of the wagons and this, like, heaven forbid you criticize us when managers get criticized every week, players get criticized every week, owners get criticized every week, referees, you criticize them and it's bad for the game. Like, well, what is going on here? You cannot. And now the conversation isn't was that decision right or wrong. The correction is the abuse of referees and the much wider issue, which is a serious issue, but that's not what we were talking about, and that's not what the majority of football fans were talking about. And if you're unable to criticize, nothing ever improves. So I think I could go on forever, but I think Howard Webb needs to be gone because he's made referees into main characters. I personally was someone who never knew the name of a referee in a game. I couldn't give a fuck about the referee's name, where he's from, or what his dog's called. I couldn't give a shit. And now they are main characters in the game. And they see themselves as main characters. You've got Howard Webb going on to the fucking overlap. You've got Ref Watch. You've got all this. They want that media personality. So what do you do when you're on the pitch? Well, the game's about me. And I think this leads to this culture. And then when there's zero accountability as well of course you're going to get shit like this. And every fan base will be affected by this. Yes, it's me complaining about Arsenal this week, but it's the delict decision that Michael Oliver gave that ultimately got Ten Hag sacked. That was a horrendous decision. Like the Liverpool Spurs own goal, the goal offside that was a massive shitstorm. Darren England got taken off Liverpool. Like every fan base has had complaints like this. Wolves wrote a letter at the end of last year to get rid of VAR because they were shafted by it so many times. Like the standard of refereeing is bad for everyone. It just happens to be this year. I think Arsenal have had some pretty headline, big, contentious decisions that have built up to this absolute nuclear shitstorm that has been Arsenal Twitter this week. And again, to finish, Arsenal fans are unbearable online. I understand why people hate us. I completely get it. We are unbearable. Like, I agree with you. But I think there's some mitigating factors that have led to this. And the refereeing just needs to be improved. Like, can you see it? For me, it starts with Howard Webb just going.
Yeah, and I think you made a real good point about it's never questioned. It's always that whatever they do is right and it gets justified and never gets questioned. And it's like we're not questioning them as like them personally or being anything. It's just more like the way they approach games, the way it is they always get big decisions wrong most of the time, and that needs to stop because it's like you said, it really can cost teams. Yes, in football, Arsenal should be superior over Wolves and win comfortably on paper, but some games are won by moments. That red card they could have lost. Other times they've have the Bournemouth one, for example, as well. Okay, if that was controversial, but again, it always matters, and again, being that kind of focal point of like making those decisions, you need to have some sort of conversation of like how other teams feel about it as well. There needs to be some sort of open discussion because if they're untouchable, because in terms of like what could be changed, it's not really going to ever change these things.
Mm.
Like you said, it's always going to happen. And this whole VAR thing, in the end, has only just enhanced their power. Clearly,
Yeah.
it's not really helped them officiate. It's just enhanced their power. The amount of times the decisions normally get stuck from the referee, the rare occasion they get changes, it's always goes back, and they're, like you said, they're always defended. It's a big issue, and again, it's Premier League is a top league, and again, everyone argues it's the best league in the world. It, the referee standards is probably one of the worst. Like, I've watched a lot of leagues. Premier League's refereeing standard is really poor.
Yeah.
But the conversations really need to be discussed, because right now, it's going to continue, and I don't see change. But it needs to, maybe it's got to be something with the head of the referees, or what, like you said. But there needs to be serious conversation, just like an open discussion. You know, we see clubs have open discussions with the Premier League when they do votes of like what stuff like that. Something like that they can have with the referees, even explaining decisions, or coming out. That's the other thing. They never come out and say anything. It's just like it's done.
Yeah.
That annoys fans even more. You want to actually come out and say, we based it on this. Blah blah. And I think at the end of the day, even if you made a mistake and you came out going, look, I judged it because of this and this. However, having looked at it after the game, I've realised it may have been an error. Fans would respect it way more than you just staying silent and being like, oh yeah, no, I stick with it. That's what it was, or not talking.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a real. I always welcome watching Arsenal in Europe because the referee, I never noticed them. I just never noticed the ref, and I never thought I'd say that about European referees because I grew up in the 2000s where they did my head in. So I think it does say a lot about the standard of referee. And I would personally have VAR as a completely independent organisation away from Pogmol, so they're not afraid to correct them. And I wouldn't even publish the referee's name. I would just have them on the pitch and then they leave. I've got no interest in who they are. But yeah, we're going to leave that one there, I suppose. Thankfully, Arsenal got the job done. Otherwise, I would have had a nervous breakdown if we'd have lost that game as well. But elsewhere, let's go through the games very quickly. Everton with a huge win at Brighton. I really wanted to cover that one, but we just simply don't have time. And Diaye obviously getting booked for being a seagull. Brighton fans losing their mind. Great scenes there. Brentford 2, Crystal Palace 1. Wissa celebrating a penalty before it even went in. One of the moments of the season already. That absolutely love that. And Essa getting his first goal with his first touch in the Premier League. I personally am happy he celebrated that goal. Go on, lad. I think the people having to go in for celebrating are miserable bastards. Aston Villa 1, West Ham United 1. How Alvarez didn't get sent off, I will never know. But West Ham possibly deserved this. I thought Paquetá was a very, very good performance here. And the worst game of the weekend, Fulham 0, Manchester United 1. A deflected goal from Lisandro Martinez delivers the win there. Liverpool beat Ipswich 4-1. As we said, Enciso probably should have been sent off, but Liverpool making light work of Ipswich there, to be expected. And Isak scores yet again. He gets 2 this time. Penalty. Tonali with his first goal of the season as they beat Southampton 3-1. Juric's record in the Premier League continues to be absolutely terrible. That was the Premier League weekend. Guys, we're going to take a very quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the European action and, of course, a little bit of transfer gossip to see you into the week. We'll see you on the other side. And we are back. It's time to talk the final round of the Champions League and Europa League phase, guys. We're going to try to keep it relatively simple, even though it's incredibly complicated. Let's do it. In the Champions League, Liverpool and Arsenal are basically through. Liverpool will be going to PSV as Arsenal go over to Spain as they take on Girona. An exciting one there. But the big games with a lot lying on it, really. I think a really exciting game here. Aston Villa taking on Celtic. Some real 1970s European Cup vibes to that tie, right?
Yeah, definitely. That is one for the books, the old books,
I absolutely love that. Villa could really do with a win to get into the top 8, but they should be through. The headline, though, surely is Man City, who will be taking on Club Brugge. at home. Now, you'd expect them to get the win, but they are currently 2 points behind VfB Stuttgart, so they need to win and probably a few results to go their way as well, so they'll be having a very nervous night. If Man City go out at the first stage, that might be the funniest thing I ever see, I'll be honest. But I expect them to put about 5 or 6 past Bruges, so I think they should be okay. They're going to go through, aren't they?
You'd think, but like, imagine, because this whole setup was for literally big teams to go through. If City don't go through, UEFA are going to be scratching their heads. What are we going to do to make it even easier now?
What more can we do? Okay,
Yeah.
25 teams next year. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, it would be the funniest thing ever. In the Europa League, both the English teams are basically home and dry, which is quite nice. Man United could do with a win, but they'll be fine. And Spurs, again, could do with a win, but should be fine. Spurs will be taking on, where's it gone? Going to edit this out. Spurs are taking on Elfsborg at home, and Manchester United are travelling to Bucharest to take on FC Steaua Bucharest. That'll be a tricky place to go, I think. I imagine the atmosphere is not particularly welcoming. Those are the fixtures in the Europa League. I think the English team should be okay, maybe not City. In the transfer window, let's talk it, Andrea, even. What transfer stories have caught your eye? Which ones are you keeping an eye on at the moment?
The whole Garnacho situation seems like the biggest transfer of all in terms of the fee size, potentially going to Chelsea, which I think is going to happen. I don't know, I just have a feeling it will, and I just don't get it, but it's the fee they're going to get. And maybe Man United want payback for the whole Mason Mount thing of Chelsea selling him for that money. But Garnacho is a decent player, so I think he actually might work. He's a good player, so I think it might actually backfire. But in terms of fee, I think that's the biggest fee we're talking about. Patrick Dorgu, from the Serie A side of things, I really like him. I think Man United fans might not know much about him, but I think he's a top left back coming up, really. Attacking fullback. Excited about that one if that happens. It definitely suits Amarin kind of style of play as well, I think, to a T, to be honest.
No, absolutely. I think he would really fit in quite well. I think it's a bit mad that United are having to just offer out all their young players to try and balance the books, and like they really are in PSR trouble, I think. But letting Garnacho go would be a confusing one. I think he's one of the few players that through this horrendous period at United has been able to hold his head relatively high. He's been one of their best players. I think obviously he needs to be polished quite a bit. He's still a very young player, but when he breaks and his ability to finish, he's just fantastic. So I think I would be worried that if he goes to Chelsea, he just fucking disappears and we never see him again. But he's a very, very exciting player, and it's kind of sad that United have to flog all their young good players to try and, like, the situation that club's in is just not good. The deal that kind of caught my eye at the moment is Evan Ferguson being offered out on loan for Brighton. Kind of interesting one. Lots of clubs from around Europe. I saw Marseille, De Zerbi might want a hookup with him in the south of France. I'm personally hearing a lot of things about him going to Arsenal. I wouldn't be against it because Arsenal having an Irish striker would be lovely for me. But his injury record really, really, really worries me. I think it would be a very good, like, short-term fix, maybe with an option to buy. Like, if he does well, we can bring him in. Obviously, on his day, a very good player. Just slightly concerned about the rust there and the kind of injuries. But it could be a deal to keep an eye on because I think we will see him go somewhere. And Mateus Cunha, Forest going for a very audacious bid, apparently. I think Arsenal have kind of cooled their interest now. They're not interested in paying the 70 million it would take, which is a lot of money. But if Forest do it, I think that would be a real statement, right?
Yeah, and it just be a statement of, like, we're trying to be here to stay, really. But I think it's a lot of money for him. I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he'd be worth it, to be honest. I think it's smart from Arsenal to call it off, to be honest. But we'll see.
I think they were willing to go up to like 40, 50, but because of the situation we're in. But then beyond that, they were like, no, we're not paying Nicolas Pepe money for anyone else anymore. Not unless we're absolutely certain. So I'm kind of glad we've ducked out of that one. But I think him going to Forest would be quite an interesting one. And Rashford, I don't know if Amarim's ever been taught anything about negotiation, but when you're trying to sell something, don't keep telling everybody how shit it is. That doesn't make them want to buy it. I think the owners must be pulling their hair out with him, being like, can you shut up for 5 minutes so we can try and sell this guy? Because I feel like he's just going to get stuck at United now. It's really sad what's happening there. I feel sorry for him, really. But maybe we will see something happen there. But guys, that's the main kind of transfer stories at the minute. Thank you as always for choosing to spend your time with us. We really do appreciate it. It means the world to us. You can go over and check out our Serie A podcast as well. It's a great weekend talking about Napoli continuing to rampage towards the Scudetto. It's looking like it. And an absolute barn burner in Milan as Milan and Parma went head to head. Go and check out that episode. It should be on your feed now. Andrea, tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Calciafiore, like on all things football.
Beautiful. Well, thank you as always, guys. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button down here somewhere. If you're listening on a podcast, I'm going to do Adam's thing of leave us a review on Apple, please. It would be quite nice. And a rating. We would really, really appreciate it. On social media, on all of them except Twitter, we are at Anglo-Italian Pod. On Twitter, we're at Italian Anglo Pod. Keep an eye on our TikTok. Andrea and Adam do incredible things over there. I might get involved at some point. Who knows? And guys, we'll see you next time. Cheers. See you later.